It's redesigning and managing products and processes to systematically avoid and eliminate the volume and toxicity of waste and materials, conserve and recover all resources and not burn or bury them. And it also means that implementing zero waste will eliminate all discharges to land, water, and air that are a threat to planet, human, and health. But what does that really mean? It means that there's no idea, there is no such thing as a way, that nature has no trash can. It means mimicking nature, that whatever is a waste product becomes an input for something else. So how can we do that? You can reduce your waste. You can look at the products that you're using and rethink how they're created. If you're creating something that's going to create a waste that has no other way to go, maybe you need to go back and look at the beginning of it and see what we can use instead. You need to reuse your products, like the farmers used to do. They take the glass mason jars and now it's going to be canning their vegetables in it, You can repair things, instead of throwing it away, you repair it, you sew up your clothes, instead of just going out and buying something new. Composting is rotting, it's the getting rid of the food and other organic material. And recycling, which we all know, which should be the last thing you look at, should be in this order. So where did we start at ISTC? So what we did is we performed a baseline waste stream characterization study in which we first started with the building walkthrough, where you go through the building and you look at how the systems work, like where are the trash cans, where are the recycling bins, et cetera, and you make a map of that facility. You document how their waste is managed so that later on you can see where you need to make the changes. So first what we did is you collect, sort, and categorize your waste. Therefore you can see your volumes. And then you examine your data to figure out where you need to make your directed approach. So why do we do that? Because it gives you a laser scope as to where your waste is. If you don't do a waste stream characterization, you're shooting blindly in the dark. You can throw money at a problem, but it's not going to solve the issue unless you know where to throw the money properly. It also gives you a metric to compare in the future, and it also lets you know what your waste is. So the first thing we do is a building walkthrough. We go through and we collect data about where the containers are at, how often it's collected. We also look at if there's going to be any hazardous wastes. But if there's any hazards that if they collect hazardous waste or they have sharps, for instance, in our lab we have sharps containers. So you need to know about that because that's still a volume that's leaving your facility. So at our facility we had 78 metal trash cans. We had 8 5-gallon buckets in the bathrooms, or 8 5-gallon trash cans in the bathrooms. We have 5 55 gallons spread out the building, and then 1 8-yard dumpster out back. Plastic is collected. Only on the University of Illinois, they only collect 1 and 2 bottles, so that's all we collect at our facility. We had 3 35-gallon containers, and then 1 35-gallon container for aluminum cans. We also have 12 3.5, the little blue Rubbermaid containers under the desks, 7 23-gallon Slim Jims throughout the building, 2 55-gallon containers that were for paper, and then 2 93-gallon toters that are outside the building that's collected by a side-loading truck. And then in each lab, there's broken glass containers. Each one also it's a cardboard box that contains a bag also. So that's how waste was collected at our facility to begin with. So then what we did is we performed a 4-week waste stream characterization study where we went through and we collected all waste at the back of our lab. I worked with a building services worker. He deposited it in the lab, and that way we didn't have to go jumping in the dumpster right away. It was a little bit cleaner, a little bit more lab setting. Sorted the waste daily and sorted it into pre-labeled 5-gallon buckets, and then weighed the buckets to get an idea. You can go through these these are some of our pictures of what our waste looked like. Find all kinds of weird things in there, you never know. There's an unused printer cartridge, gloves, paper towels, typical lab supplies, nitrile gloves in a plastic bag, test tubes, Falcon tubes is what these are. They're a PTFE tube, paper, found a bunch of paper in there. And toilet paper rolls. Found a bunch of third-use toilet paper rolls. So these are our surprises. Go ahead. That 9.5% of our trash was nitrile gloves. So with that, if I wouldn't have done a waste stream characterization study, I wouldn't have known that was an issue. So in that, we were able to find a way for that to go. 3% of our waste was trash bags, and these are all things that are inherent in the system that you wouldn't know unless you actually looked at it, weighed it, and sorted it out. Go ahead. So these are some of the things that were a little disheartening, but it also means that we had a big room for improvement. that more than 50% of our aluminum wasn't getting recycled, and that 26% of our paper and 43% of our cardboard was not recycled. And mostly I attributed that to the lack of containers. We only had, a small number of containers, and there was no signs. People didn't necessarily know how things were handled. It's basically just not knowing about it. And we ended up with a 29.94 baseline measurement for our waste diversion rate. So these are the changes we made to the system. We added 30 of those little Rubbermaid containers, one in each office, one in each lab, 7 more of those Slim Jim containers just for the paper. We added 2 more 35-gallon containers and combined the plastic and aluminum into one stream because they're sorted out later at the waste transfer station. And we removed the little metal trash cans from all the offices because you don't need a little metal trash can. One of the issues I found is that in sorting, university policy is if there's anything in the trash, even if it's a piece of gum, they have to pull that bag. So I was finding in one 55-gallon bag, I was finding 15 to 20 little bags that just had little piece of paper, little piece of gum in it. So we removed all those and created some signs. Go ahead. This is a sign I made. I'm not a graphic designer or anything, so I just kind of made it simple. And as you can see, we really only recycle aluminum and 1 and 2 containers in those bins. This is a map I made of our facility, so you can see now where the proliferation of the containers are. And the next, this is the second floor. Go ahead. This is what our recycling station now looks like in our conference room, so you have an idea of keep everything in one space so the people then can see, have the option to throw it in the proper container. So our results from the study, our original goal was 45%. And in 6 months, we got to 67%. So it was quite impressive. I mean, there's still a lot of room to go, but that just, we more than doubled our rate, which is pretty awesome. And the following are going to be some graphs, and these are percentages of the total of our weight. So you can see on the left is our trash, and it shows the shift of our aluminum moving from the trash to the recycling. Same thing with our cardboard. You can see the shift of how now we're recycling almost 12%, where it was only 7.4. Same thing with paper. We're up to 42% of our paper now. 42% of our volume is paper recycling. There we go. This is our bottles. And then this is an interesting thing. I'd like to talk about this for a minute. So the nitrile gloves. There's a program with Kimberly-Clark. I'm sure many of you have heard of them. They partner with TerraCycle, and what they do is the facility will collect the gloves once they're used, and then once they're all collected, then they're shipped out to TerraCycle at a very low rate, extremely low, like $250 for 500 pounds, which is almost unheard of. So then what we did is I took the metal trash cans that I pulled out of the offices and painted them purple, which matches the color of the gloves that we're using in the lab. That for people, it just makes sense. You have a purple glove, you have a purple trash can, goes right in there. And here's a picture of what it looks like inside of the waste station. And another issue that we had was there was some batteries that I found in the waste. It was 1 or 2, really wasn't that much, but any batteries that go into the waste is bad in my eyes. So we partnered with Call to Recycle and Battery Solutions. We were able to provide recycling for batteries for all sorts of batteries, anything you can think of. And then there's a picture of our recycling station for the batteries. It's down in our lobby. And the little sign, you can't really read that, says to tape up the tops of your 9-volt batteries so they don't start a fire in the container because they could contact the other batteries. And then on the left, you put your rechargeables into a bag and then deposit it in the box. And then these are shipped out via FedEx to the recycling facility, and then they send us a report with what our volumes were, what kind of batteries we had, and all of that. And yeah, that was the end of my presentation. So questions? I know you got questions. Questions? Anybody? Nobody?
So I got a question. What's happening with the compost and where's it going?
Currently, our compost goes into the trash because there is no composting facility in Champaign-Urbana. The closest one to our facility is 76 miles, so there is no option for us currently. The university has looked at anaerobic digester as well as composting programs, so that could be something that we could work at down the road. The city of Urbana is also looking at starting a food scrap composting, so that could be something also for our facility. If we were able to compost our scraps, we'd be about 85% right now. So that makes a huge difference in our picture. You had a question?
Yeah, how did you come up with your zero waste to landfill definition?
The zero waste definition, you mean? The one in the beginning is from ZWIA, which is the Zero Waste International Alliance, and it's an internationally recognized definition. They formed it in about 2004, and it's pretty much industry standard for U.S. Zero Waste Business Council, Green Resources Recycling Network. They all use the same definition that ZWIA created, and it's kind of an all-encompassing picture for that. Yeah, the goal is to reach 90%. Well, the goal is zero waste, but what's in the industry, what's defined as zero waste is 90% reduction or 90% diversion from the landfill. So we're very near that.
When you rolled out this program, you mentioned the changing the containers and also made it very visual, which is excellent. Did you have to do any training or education for this program to be successful?
Sent out an email and then basically just kind of watched people interact with the system. Say for instance, there was one of our building users didn't realize that the containers that he was using were recyclable. So it was just a matter of, I saw those containers every day, I saw this person with them, and I was just like, hey, you can recycle that? He said, no, I didn't know that. So now it goes in the recycling bin instead of in the trash. You had a question?
Well, I wonder if you suggest that you would not about the recycling questions.
Yeah, in the back of the room, we have composting bins as well as recycling bins, so you can feel good about your waste, that it's not going into the landfill. Any other questions? Kevin?
Do you see sometime in the future where somebody will be certifying programs, standardized definitions?
Yes, actually, the U.S. Zero Waste Business Council has just finished their standardization for certification, and they have just started unrolling that program. And in that program, they go through a full building, looking at everything you do, and they value the reuse and the reduction as higher points than the actual recycling, because those are the optimal, because the best resource is the unused resource. I saw one other.
So you have about 33% that is not recycled at this point, right?
Currently, yes.
So within that 33%, have you done an assessment of what's in there and what your next challenges are in terms of what in your waste stream today can't be recycled, or you have to figure out a partner to recycle?
Okay, most of the little things that can't be recycled currently would be the laboratory plastics, and we've been working on forming a pilot program to look at the recyclability of those, because those are high-value plastics, but they don't have a number on them. So you need some sort of near-infrared or X-ray spectrometry to see what kind of plastic they are, but they're perfectly recyclable. It's just a matter of figuring that system out. There really isn't one out there that anybody's using other than the near-infrared sorting, so that's our next step, is to look at the lab plastic, which is about 9%, and then the compost is a big chunk of that, and so hopefully if we can get the compost. And then there's 2 or 3% that was still aluminum cans or paper that was going in there, and that's just a matter of continuing to train the users as to where it's supposed to go, where the proper place is to put their materials.
Opposite of training the users when they put in the trash, what about those who empty the trash? Was the training involved?
Unfortunately, we can't really do anything with them because our building services workers are union, and therefore they have a set procedure as to what they do. I mean, they tend to work. There really isn't much that we can do with them, honestly. I mean, it would have to be something that would change that would happen from the top down, something that would come from O&M, redoing their manuals, to tell them that this is how it happens. And as a side, in our building, they're not allowed to touch the little blue Rubbermaid containers that are in the individual offices, so that's something that the building users have to dump on their own.
I was thinking about the toilet paper in the trash.
Okay, yeah, sorry, that was an issue. What that was, see, if I didn't do a waste stream characterization, I wouldn't have seen those toilet paper rolls. And that was something that was very simple. 2 of the bathrooms only had single roll holders, where they had capacity for 3 rolls, they only had 1 roll holder. So instead of getting 2 more roll holders, they would pull that 3rd empty roll and put a new one in. So we don't see those rolls anymore because I've got those roll holders, and now we have 3 rolls in the bathroom. But if you didn't do a waste stream characterization, you would never know that that was a problem. So you could throw money at the issue and you wouldn't even know if you were successful, if that makes sense. Another question?
Will you be pursuing
We're actually ISTC is one of the founding members with the U.S. Zero Waste Business Council. So I believe that's one of the pathways that we're going to be going through. UL also has a zero waste certification that they're using. Those are the two programs out that I'm currently aware of.
There's one addition to have his hands here.
I don't think it was very appropriate to any of the citizens I think it's an emerging topic.
Yeah, well, there's significant expense to some of them.
Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Seth.
Okay, thanks.